Hi math students, this is our introduction video for our lesson on integer story problems. The focus of this lesson is going to be using all the math we learned in the previous lesson about adding and subtracting integers to help us solve story problems. The first part of this introduction video is talking about being able to identify what integer represents each situation. And we learned in that last lesson that integer means we're talking about positive and negative numbers. So for example, if you see the sentence, Larry deposited $45, there's a key word in that sentence that helps you know the sign of the number, and that is that word deposit there. If you deposit money, that is money you have, and so that 45 there would be a positive 45. If it's in the middle of an equation, we might see positive 45 like this, but we've learned that when numbers are positive, you don't necessarily need that plus sign there. Go ahead, pause the video, and try these other three. They should be fast. Going through these last three here, the next one, Jaylene, is 15 feet underwater. Underwater means that we are below the water, and at water is represented with the number 0, so below the water, or 15 feet underwater, would be a negative 15. That next one, we've got Jose's business lost $100. That keyword lost tells us that it's not money he's making. A positive 100 would be money he makes. Losing $100 would be negative 100. And then that last one, the temperature rose 5 degrees overnight. Rose means the temperature is going up 5 degrees, and so that would be a positive 5. Using words like these help us with the second part, which is representing these stories with equations. So one example of the type of stories you're going to see in this lesson is here on the screen. We've got Steve has overdrawn his checking account by $27. His bank charged him a $15 fee for this. Then he quickly deposited $100. What is his current balance? For stories like these, there's always going to be two questions we're going to do. The first is representing it with an equation. That means we're going to use all of the numbers in the story to help create an equation to represent it. And then the second part is obviously answering the question, what is his current balance? We can go through the story again using the same keywords we talked about in the first part. The first sentence says he has overdrawn his checking account by $27. When you overdraw a bank account, that means you take out more money than you actually have. So that helps me know that this 27 here is actually a negative 27. That's $27 he does not have. The next sentence says his bank charged him a $15 fee for this. Words like charged and fee also mean that is money that he's not going to have. That's money he has to pay, and so that 15 is also going to be negative. Finally, we've got he quickly deposited $100. We already saw that word deposit above, and so we know from before that that 100 would be positive. My advice is doing what we just did here, finding those key words and using them to identify the sign, because once you have all those signs, you basically have the equation. Our equation would be negative 27 minus 15 plus 100. And to finish my equation, I'm trying to figure out what that equals. To answer the question, what is his current balance, all that's left for me to do is do all of this math here. Using what we learned in yesterday's lesson, we're just going to go from left to right. So I'm going to start with that negative 27 minus 15. We learned in that previous lesson that when you have two negative numbers, when the signs are the same, you have to add those numbers and keep the sign. So I know I'm keeping the sign, so it would be a negative, and 27 plus 15 equals 42. We can think of that negative 42 in the story as that's the total amount of money he has to pay the bank. He has to pay them back the $27 and that $15 fee. After I've done that, there's one last step, and that's doing negative 42 plus 100. Using what we learned yesterday in that past lesson, we've got different signs here, so I'm going to be subtracting. When you subtract 142, that gives you 58, and then we keep the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is positive, so my 58 is positive. Going back to the story, we can think of it like he has $100, so after he pays $42, he'll have less money. That's why it's a smaller number, but he still has money, which is why it's positive. So what is his current balance? His current balance is $58. In today's lesson, we're going to be doing more stories like this and using what we've learned about integers to help us solve these problems. Thanks so much for watching.